The 3 types of fragrances every man should own when starting a collection or beginning in fragrance. Now this video was actually requested by one of you guys, and I was like, you know what? That is a beautiful idea. So thank you so much for that idea. I'll probably throw you up right here. But yeah, as always, I just want to preface this by saying, this is coming from somebody who, used to work in niche fragrance. I used to work for the House of Creed specifically, but even more importantly, it's coming from somebody who, I fell in love with fragrance almost 7 years ago now. I say it every time, but I just sort of fell down the rabbit hole after falling in love with fragrance. Fell down the rabbit hole on like YouTube primarily, and some forums and whatnot, and sort of just went through the trials and tribulations of trusting those who were posting stuff online that were not to be trusted. They sort of were just trying to push products out that they didn't really believe in just to make a little bit of money sort of thing off of commission or push their own products. But then I also found those who were being very genuine and honest, which I'm forever grateful for, and am trying to sort of be the contemporary of, and sort of just continue that on. And after 6 or 7 years now of having my own personal experiences with fragrance, I'm now able to sort of share that. So yeah, now in this video I'll be including both niche and designer fragrances to begin a collection with. I'll also be sorting them from most expensive to least expensive in each category, and all of them for the most part having a great complement factor and great mass appeal, and then also trying to stay in those fragrances that are going to have like great longevity and projection. Nothing that's going to like break the bank and then it's not even going to perform for you. Also, I'm going to split this into a few different parts, and that's going to be like fresh fragrances, cold weather fragrances, and then also like special occasion / date night fragrances. Now the only sort of wonky thing is that those cold weather fragrances and those sort of special occasion fragrances have this sort of overlap between them, just because that's just how it works out. They're kind of interchangeable in some cases, but I'm gonna do my best. Also, last thing, I just wanna say in full authenticity, as someone who's not trying to, sell you anything or push any products onto you, you do not need an insane fragrance collection. Of course, unless you, really fall in love with fragrance and just have this passion for it and wanna grow a collection and just have several beautiful creations in your collection. You don't need to get more than just a few fragrances that are gonna last you a long time. About a year ago, I started sort of reflecting and taking a step back and looking at my collection and being like, almost having some regrets just over a few fragrances here or there that I just don't really wear because they just don't perform well, or because that I found out that they don't really have that sort of, not even mass appeal, but some of them just more often than not, I found out were just like putting people off more than they would just be sort of neutral. But yeah, don't feel pressured to get a ton of fragrances or anything like that ever. Okay, so let's actually get started now with the fresh fragrances that are going to be more geared for that warmer weather, but can also just, you can't go wrong with a fresh fragrance. You really can't. You can wear it on sort of any occasion, so long as it's not like too salty or anything like that, too marine. But for the most part, the overwhelming majority of fresh fragrances are going to be appropriate at all times. Now I'm going to order this from niche fragrances first, and then go into those designer fragrances. And then, like I said earlier, it's going to be from most expensive to least expensive. So the first one I'm going to start off with is Roja Parfums Elysium. Now Elysium, it's amazing, man. It really is. I think it's gonna be like, I couldn't remember, so I just checked right now. It's around that $345 US dollar price range, coming straight from Roja. And it's just like this beautiful, citrusy, fresh, like very, very refreshing, like freshly squeezed grapefruit sort of thing, but in like the most luxurious, premium aspect. I mean, oh, man, I've heard a lot of people talk about like the scenarios they think about, and it's just like very like rich yacht-esque, like south of the Santorini island sort of thing going on. I think that's a beautiful thing about fragrance. You can really tie a setting to it a lot, and I can really see that, what people mean by it. I mean, it's just this very luxurious, fresh, clean fragrance that can, I usually wear it sort of as an everyday sort of fragrance, or if I'm just going out running some errands, meeting with friends. I actually wear this to the gym quite often as well, but seriously, it is very appropriate for almost every occasion. Now the next one is going to be Gentle Fluidity Silver from MFK. Now, I know it's a little suspect that I don't have it and I'm discussing it, but it is seriously a fragrance that I love, and it's just this very clean, like a little metallic sort of fragrance. It's just very clean and fresh and just, I mean, I'm probably gonna say clean a million times while discussing this one because it is, I mean, that's just, it really orients itself around being this just upfront, straightforward, clean, masculine fragrance. Now I wore this one quite often when I was working for Creed because it was right next to the MFKs were right next to Creed when I was working there. And I mean, they just have so many beautiful fragrances, but Gentle Fluidity Silver, I think is definitely my favorite from MFK. And it is just this very easy to wear, mass appealing fragrance. Also for an MFK, I think it's like $235, $240 US, which for an MFK is like amazing. Now, like I said, it almost leans like a little metallic, and it doesn't really have that like that common citrus on top that you would be normally used to from those fresher fragrances. It's just very like clean, almost like clean laundry-esque, but more luxurious than that. Not just fresh laundry, but just very fresh in that metallic sense. So I think it would be a bit more appropriate to wear in like, you know, maybe a bit more appropriate than Elysium in like an office setting. Now I think you could get away with Elysium in an office setting, but that Gentle Fluidity Silver is just very professional. So those are my two biggest ones from the niche category for fresher fragrances for everyday sort of settings. Now for the designer lineup, the first one I'm gonna be starting with is Dylan Blue from Versace. Now Dylan Blue, I have so much nostalgia tied to this fragrance, genuinely. But I'm not gonna lie, as of now, I'm not wearing this one as often, but when I'm talking to people about it and just sort of the most well-rounded fragrances that you can sort of wear to every occasion, I always just have to bring it up. I really do, because even though I don't wear it, I just truly believe that like, if you had one fragrance in your entire collection, Dylan Blue could get you away with like almost anything. I mean, it's just this very like mass appealing ambery fragrance. Oh man, and it's just very nice. Now I think it is a little bit more geared for those, you know, warmer weather days, the summer, the spring sort of thing. But honestly, like I said, just very well-rounded. Overall, you could wear it in any season. I really think it'd be great for the winter and fall as well, because it does have that, it's very ambery and it has a little bit of sweetness from that amberiness. But also I think there's a bit of like tonka bean on the bottom of it, which gives that sweetness as well. And it's just layered perfectly, genuinely. And I think base, it's going for like 70 bucks for the 100 mil. I think this is 100 milliliters. But yeah, it's going for like 70 bucks. But honestly, you can find it for like 60 online, I believe. Now this next one, I should have actually mentioned before this one because it's a bit more expensive, but it's going to be Bleu de Chanel from Chanel, but the Eau de Toilette version. Now, all of the Bleu de Chanels are great, right? The EDP and the Parfum version just lean a bit more winter and fall because of those woods on it. But the Eau de Toilette, overall, man, I mean, I just love it the most out of all of them. I think they're all great, but Eau de Toilette just beats them all, seriously. It's just very fresh, very blue. It doesn't give too much of a designer scent from it, even though it is a designer fragrance. I mean, you can still tell, especially to like the trained nose, but it's not gonna be overly like synthetic or anything like that. And Dylan Blue is not synthetic either, just wanna make that clear. Now, the only thing with Bleu de Chanel is that it's very, very well known. Now, I'm not talking about like Dior Sauvage well known, but the DNA of it is going to be, you know, between the Eau de Toilette and the Eau de Parfum and the Parfum. You just might wanna be a bit mindful over what sort of setting you're gonna wear it to, because a lot of people that I've sold it to, I mean, it was just a very balanced crowd. I mean, there was the grown men that were buying it for me, my age and 10, 20 years ahead, 30 years ahead. But then there was also parents buying it for their middle schoolers or high school kids coming in to buy it as well. And I asked some of my friends sort of to guess what I was wearing at one point, my friends that were working there as well, my coworkers. And I remember one of them said, you know, it smells sort of like a middle school fragrance, because I guess she had smelled it in a school setting like that. So I was like, oh man, like maybe like this might be something that, you know, I want to be mindful of and other people are going to want to be mindful of, is that depending on the setting you wear it to. Some people might think you smell like they're kids. Now the last fragrance for the fresh everyday fragrances I want to bring up is sort of going to be its own genre. I guess it would be more towards niche, definitely not designer, but it's going to be Club de Nuit's Intense Man from Armaf. Now this is a fragrance you can find on Amazon for like $35 or $40. Seriously, it's insane because it is on the nose with Creed's Aventus. Now I used to work for Creed, and even when I was working for them, I was always disappointed with the lack of longevity and projection with Aventus, especially for how much you're paying for. I mean, it's like $495 before tax, to my knowledge. And as you can see, I'm not spraying it that much because not only is the longevity and projection not fantastic with this, I mean, it's underwhelming, but the smokiness on the bottom puts off not only my nose, but seems to be what puts off a lot of women, right? The feminine nose is not a huge fan of the smokiness on the bottom of this. I say this every time I bring up Aventus. You know, I always got that sense that it just wasn't for me whenever I would smell it. I think it was that the apple and the pineapple mixing with that smokiness undertone. And I could never put into words, but Melissa Nacional is another fantastic fragrance YouTuber that I would tell you to check out. And she's the one who put me onto that verbiage and was able to put it into words on why this does not have the feminine appeal that you would expect from all of the OG YouTubers sort of raving about it and making it so legendary into what it is now. And to be completely honest, Club de Nuit leans a bit more towards Aventus Cologne. And Aventus Cologne, I always say, deserves the hype that Aventus gets. I mean, Aventus Cologne leans a bit more citrusy, and so does this. It leans a little bit away from that, just a little bit away from that pineapple fruitiness, more into those citruses on top, the bergamot especially, but I believe it's the bergamot. And then on the smokiness accord, it sort of leans a bit away from it. Now, I think it still has it, for sure, but it makes it a lot more mass appealing. Now, I will say Aventus has a huge male appeal. Like, men really love Aventus. I mean, every time somebody would come to Creed and I would show it to them, or that usually they'd be asking about it if they haven't smoked Creed before, they would ask about it and the guy would be in love with Aventus, seriously. I mean, they would usually love Aventus Cologne as well, but more often than not, they were just floored with Aventus. I really don't know what it is, but really it is the male gaze that is just really in love with it. Whereas women, on the other hand, when it comes to the House of Creed, like I said, don't like Aventus, and it's usually Silver Mountain Water that they really love. Now, Silver Mountain Water, I'm not putting it on this list, I'm just bringing it up for context right now. Silver Mountain Water is not going to be on this list just because the longevity and projection isn't good enough to have it, especially as a beginner fragrance, especially if you're going to spend the money on a Creed. I am working on a video right now on Silver Mountain Water dupes and clones, so be sure to check that out. Should be up within the next few days, hopefully. But yeah, Silver Mountain Water is what wins when it comes to the feminine appeal to women's nose when it comes from Creed. Now onto our cold weather fragrances, and I'm gonna tell you up front right now, this section's gonna seem a little more suspect, because a lot of these fragrances I don't have physically, but I've worn and owned most of them. Now the first one is going to be from Parfums de Marly, and it is going to be Leighton. Now, I don't have Leighton. The only Parfums de Marly fragrance I own is Herod, and Herod, it's a great scent profile, really. The DNA is amazing, the scent is fantastic, but it just doesn't last for me. And I've heard the same thing from so many other people, and it is so disappointing. I don't know if it's just the batch I got or if it's just me. I promise I'm not even going nose blind to it. I'm like spraying my back, the back of my shirt, the back of my clothes, and I'm just not getting it after a few hours. Seriously, I don't know what it is. Amazing scent, but it goes away fast, man. But Leighton, on the other hand, is this very mass appealing, a little woodsy, but very more towards like that warming, warm, spicy, sort of vanilla fragrance. That one seems to have a great balanced appeal. I would say the feminine appeal is a little greater, but it's very balanced in terms of the compliment factor. I mean, the people that I would show Parfums de Marly quite often when I was working in niche fragrance, And that was a huge one, seriously. Also, the longevity and projection, I would say, is the absolute opposite from what I've experienced with Harrod. Layton has this very strong sillage and projection and scent bubble, and it lasts quite a long time. Also, I think Layton, when it comes to Parfums de Marly fragrances, is actually pretty fairly priced relative to Parfums de Marly prices. I think it's around the $280 to $290 range. Now, the next fragrance is going to be from a designer house, which is Viktor & Rolf, and it is going to be Spice Bomb Extreme. Now, Spice Bomb Extreme, I used to own this one until I ran out. It's this amazing winter fall fragrance, that cold weather fragrance, more everyday sort of thing. And it's just this beautiful, warm, spicy, but still like vanillin fragrance. I believe it's also got a little bit of tobacco on the bottom. I would say the spiciness probably leans a bit more towards that fresh spicy. I think it's just the vanillas and like tobacco that makes it a bit more warm feeling. So I guess warm spicy in general. Now, of course, this is a designer fragrance because it is from Viktor & Rolf, but it doesn't give crazy, I mean, none of these that I've listed will give these like crazy synthetic sort of vibes or designer vibes, right, when you smell them. But for a designer fragrance, I mean, I think it's around the $130 range, $140 range. It gives you great performance, it really does, in terms of longevity and projection. And the smell and the scent profile is really nice. I mean, the feminine appeal is huge when it comes to that one. Now, this next one is going to be the one that deserves the most suspicion on this list because I haven't smelled it in a year or two, probably closer to like 2 or 3 years, but it's going to be Dior Homme Intense. Now, I'm not gonna lie to you, I don't remember how this smells, like I can't remember it, but from the amount of reputable sources that I have, the amount of reputable friends that I have, and the amount of reputable people that I've kept up with on YouTube, really adore this fragrance. Now, this one, for being a cold weather fragrance, isn't going to have that same like warm spiciness or vanilla accord. I think there is a little bit of vanilla in there, but it leans more towards that woody, irisy sort of vibe. It's a little powdery with that iris, but I don't think it makes it too unisex and doesn't take away from the masculinity of it. Now, of course, I can't 100% authentically vouch for that, but it is made for men. I mean, it's marketed for men, Dior Homme Intense. And then all of my friends, my male friends that wear it, swear by it, seriously. And I think that one's gonna be in that same area as Spice Bomb Extreme, around that 130 to maybe actually 150 sometimes range. Now, the last one for the cold weather fragrances is going to be Yves Saint Laurent's La Nuit de l'Homme. Now, La Nuit de l'Homme is another one that is just such a huge winner when it comes to the feminine nose and feminine appeal. With this one also doesn't really have that sort of generic warm spiciness. It leans more towards that like, that nice like distinctive cardamom in it, but it's like a softer cardamom. And it's just done in a way that I haven't smelled a cardamom before. I mean, it's not like Sauvage Elixir's cardamom. It's not like Absolute Aventus's cardamom. It's just this very light, but still distinct spice. And it's just, like I said, man, I mean, women just seem to adore it. I also think a full size of La Nuit de l'Homme is going around that $70 to $80 range as well. So it's a very nice, affordable designer fragrance. Now moving on to the last section, which is that special occasion / date night sort of occasion fragrances. Now, the first one on here is going to be Carlisle. Now, I know it's probably going to sound ridiculous and redundant that I'm mentioning all these fragrances that I don't physically have, but like I said, I got Harrod. It's a regret. I'm insecure about it. Leave me alone. No, but Harrod, like I said, it goes toe to toe with Carlisle, but when it comes to longevity and performance, I mean, Carlisle just wins 11 times out of 10, seriously. And it seems like the feminine appeal for Carlisle is actually oftentimes greater than Harrod. Now, I've heard a lot of things about that and a lot of different people's experiences around that. Some people even scoffing at it and being like, how is that even possible that could have happened for you? But I promise you, when I was working in niche fragrance, whenever I would show the Parfums de Marly's, Carlisle would come out on top of the Harrod a lot of the time. Now, with the longevity and projection of Carlisle being fantastic and mentioned, the vanilla, warm, spicy accord, I mean, that warmer feeling just makes it even more special for like a date night occasion. It also has a little bit of woodiness, but even more so, it has this patchouli note in it, I believe. And for some reason, patchouli, when done correctly, of course, but patchouli in general, when I see those fragrances, they are usually those colder weather fragrances that are just really, really loved by the feminine nose. Now, of course, this is the first one on the list here, so it's gonna be more expensive. I believe it's gonna be around that $330 range, US dollar range from Parfums de Marly, but it is really a fantastic pick. Now, the next one on the list is going to be Yves Saint Laurent's Tuxedo. Now, Tuxedo will forever have a special place in my heart. I just can't get enough of it, man. I mean, it's just it's the most beautiful patchouli fragrance that I've been able to get my nose on so far. It's very, oh, the patchouli is amazing. On the front of the bottle, it says patchouli and spices. And I mean, that's just really what it is, man. I mean, it's got this bit of vanillin and amberiness to it as well. Sort of that patchouli and amberiness goes really hand in hand together. And this one, I mean, I know I say it for a lot of them, and that's why I picked a lot of these. The feminine appeal of this one is really large as well. Now, the compliment factor for Tuxedo seems to be fantastic, and I just think it's ridiculous. But I do think the compliment factor is pretty balanced between both genders, but just leans a bit more towards compliments from women. That's how it's gone for me, and that's how it's gone for a lot of other reputable people that I've listened to. Now, I know this section is, you know, date night / special occasion. This one would be more towards that special occasion. I definitely think it's appropriate for date night, but it would just have to be more towards like that dressed up sort of date night, you know, very nice dinner, very nice outing, very nice dressed up sort of event, private event sort of thing. I think it would be perfect for like a wedding. Now, Tuxedo for me lasts quite a while. It really does. It's very strong for me. Now, I've heard some other people that have said, you know, they don't get more than 4 hours out of it, I believe. But for me personally, it's done me a lot of justice. I've never had to reapply it. I also think that one's going for around the $300 range. Now, this next fragrance is going to be my most sort of iconic date night fragrance, and that is going to be Naxos from Jomashop. Now, Jomashop, this has to be their magnum opus when it comes to, at least to a date night fragrance. I mean, it is this beautiful, sweet, but still masculine, like honey fragrance. And I think it leans a bit more masculine because it does have that tobacco underneath. With that honey and vanilla mixing together, it's just what makes it so intoxicating and irresistible. The amount of compliments I've garnered from Naxos has been incredible. And like I said, that feminine appeal, it's just what makes it the most fantastic date night fragrance. And it's a lot more, you know, it's a lot more intimate. I mean, the projection is pretty loud and the longevity is fantastic, but it still gives those more like close connection vibes. Now, I'm gonna try to keep this one short because I could go on and get lost for an eternity in this one. But I believe it's going for around the $250 US range from Jomashop. Now, moving on to our designer fragrances for the special occasion and date night fragrances, we're going to be starting off with Margiela's Replica line Jazz Club. Now, Jazz Club, hands down, has to be the best fragrance from the Replica line. Now, I think that mostly because I personally really love it myself, but also it seems to have the most mass appeal and especially the most feminine appeal as well. I mean, that seems to be hands down, without a doubt. Now, this one's gonna lean into a little bit of sweetness from that vanilla on the bottom, but it's really gonna lean into that sort of tobacco, rum, like booziness. I mean, the Replica line from Margiela really leans into those settings and scenarios, and it really tries to nail that setting, and they really did it with Jazz Club. I mean, it's got this very lounge, speakeasy sort of vibe to it. It's a little smoky, but in like the best way possible. Not in like a by the fireplace kind of smoky. This was sort of a regret of mine as well, by the way, and not in sort of like the undertone smokiness, muskiness that Aventus has. It's this own really loungy jazz club sort of smokiness from that tobacco, I believe, that really just gives it that more masculine frame, and it's just so beautiful. Now, I think full sizes on terms of the Replica lines, this would be like a full 100 milliliter size. I believe they're going for more around that $160 to $170 US range. Now, the next one is going to be Stronger With You Intensely from Armani. Now, this one, I'm just gonna be completely honest. I don't remember if I've smelled it or not. If I did, it was years ago, and I cannot sort of vouch for it based off of my own nose, but I can vouch for it based off of the experiences of those I trust, and so many of those that are just recommending it outright on YouTube, TikTok, Instagram, etc. To my knowledge, it's gonna be like this more sweet, ambery, vanilla sort of fragrance. And I believe it has a bit of cinnamon on top that's gonna give it that extra like warm spiciness sort of kick to it. From the scent profile itself, it seems like a perfect sort of date night fragrance. And I personally haven't heard anything negative or anything with a negative connotation about it. And to my knowledge, I believe it's gonna be more around that $140 to $160 range. Now the next one on this list is going to be Jean Paul Gaultier's Ultra Male or Ultra Male. Now this one is this very loud, strong projection longevity. I mean, it's pretty insane. Seriously, be careful if you pick this up. Be careful with how many sprays you go on this one. Seriously, I mean, this one is just this very incredibly performing vanilla sweet fragrance, and it has this fruitiness because of that pear note on top, and that pear note on top is just so different. I mean, you don't see pear a lot in this, and it's pretty distinct in the top note of this. It also has like those woods on the bottom to my knowledge, and those greens, but I don't really get that. I really don't. I just get that very loud vanilla sweetness. I mean, it's very, I always say it's very youthful, right? It's very, it's more in those, I believe the compliments that I've gotten with this one have always ranged from more of like the late teen crowd to like the late 20s crowd. It's very youthful. I think it's perfect for like outdoor sort of public party sort of settings, or like nightclubs, or like partying sort of things. This gives those party vibes with it. I guess that would sort of be the special occasion that is tied with this one. But I truly do believe that you could get away with this on a date night setting. You would just have to be very careful and cautious with how many sprays you do. I would probably only do like one to the back of the shirt because the back of my neck doesn't project. Or maybe I would do one to the back of my neck because I know it wouldn't project as strong as it normally does because my skin doesn't seem to project the most. So I would want that to, you know, sort of bring it down a little bit, especially if you're gonna be like, you know, if you're gonna use this on a date night and you're gonna go pick her up, I mean, this is just gonna fill the car up if you were to do more than one spray. I mean, it is still gonna fill the car up even with one spray. And I believe Ultra Male right now is going around like 125. Now this last one is also going to be one that I haven't smelled in years. It's been at least 2 years that I've smelled it, since I've smelled this one, a year and a half. But it's going to be Dolce & Gabbana's The One Eau de Parfum. Now the Eau de Parfum version does seem to be the best, especially with that longevity and projection, because I believe it might have had some longevity issues in the past with those less strong versions sort of thing. This one is super renowned in the fragrance community, and it's this more warm, spicy, ambery sort of accord with like this, I believe it has that cardamom in it as well, and maybe it's a cinnamon, but I think it's a cardamom that adds to that warm spiciness as well. And I really need to get my nose on it again, seriously. I mean, right now I'm like trying to chill because I have a lot of, my collection leans a lot more towards those warm, spicy accords, but I seriously need a refresher on that one. I believe it also has that tobacco underneath, which makes it very masculine, but still has that fantastic feminine appeal. Now, I really hope this video was valuable for you guys. If you're new here, my name is Jackson, and really this channel is just oriented around fragrance and my love for fragrance. And also just trying to give my own experiences and honest sort of authenticity when it comes to fragrance, not trying to push any products. You know, I do put, you know, Amazon affiliate links in the description in case, you know, you decide that you do want to grab that for yourself. But I'm not trying to push any products, not trying to earn any, you know, commission by lying to you guys. I just want to be able to be fully authentic and myself on here. So if that and fragrance sounds interesting to you, make sure to subscribe and like the video. Also, if you have any questions or comments, feel free to drop a comment down below. And then also, I'll link my Instagram below if you want to shoot me a DM on there. I'm always open to that. If you have any, you know, more in-depth questions or anything like that, just let me know. Anyways, I hope you guys have a good one. God bless.